Hello friends, and welcome back to Enterprise Architecture. Now, last episode we made a lot of progress in Techopolis 3. We got so far as to set up our initial AE2 system, and in between episodes I set up a whole bunch of autocrafting, which you can see next to me here. We have autocrafters for most of our most commonly used ingredients. So, let me show off what we are doing with that, and after that we get to build our first reactor of the pack. So, with no further ado, let's dive right in. So as I was saying, last episode we set up our basic AE2 system here. That's Applied Energistics 2 for those of you who are not in the know. This allows us to have a storage system for all of our items, but it also allows us to do auto crafting. All of these items here that you can see with the plus, I have set up auto crafters for. We also have our pattern encoding terminal where we can record whatever recipes we want for that auto crafting. So all of this is happening here. I built one of these crafting pillars here. This consists of, as you can see, a crafting storage on the bottom, crafting coprocessor unit, and on the top a crafting monitor. One interesting thing that I learned that I didn't realize that you can do in AE2 is these are actually just applied little stickers basically on here. So if I take an engineering processor and put it on a generic crafting unit, it becomes a coprocessing unit. Similarly, the crafting monitor, if we shift click on that, we can pull it off, it turns back into a crafting unit. Then it goes back to a crafting monitor. This is not the case for storage, unfortunately. This is actually a block you have to make, but that means these other ones you can swap out as you need. Here we have a tower of molecular assemblers and pattern providers. This is where all of the normal sort of crafting grid sort of crafting happens. So we have patterns for all of these different items, all of our different things that we're using for storage components, for the actual pattern for the blank patterns themselves, quartz glass, quartz cable, and our Fluix cables as well. All of those are going in there. Here we have other similar things. We have, what is this? The item cell housing. We've got the energy tablets, which we use a lot. For whatever reason, we use a lot of pistons, so I figured we put it in there. All these other AE2 sorts of things. The next set here that we've got are just our inscribers. Each of these is the inscriber press for a variety of different circuits. So each one of these first four has its own inscriber press. That makes the four types of basic circuits. And then this one can make all of the combination circuits here, as well as our control circuits, because these are actually done in an inscriber press as well in this pack. And then here we have all of our various machines that we used to have just sitting down on the ground there, our enrichment chamber, our metallurgic infuser, our crushing factory, etc. and so forth. Now, all of these I haven't completely set up yet, but I put a few basic recipes of things that we create often, like all of our enriched ingredients. Over here, a bunch of our various dusts in the crusher, and so forth and so on. One thing to note here is that some of these processing patterns require enriched ingredients to make, and I'm doing whatever the recipe is for that to use one piece of the enriched ingredient to produce 8 or 4 or whatever happens to be the output. So in this case, we take 8 copper ingots, 1 enriched redstone, and we get 8 infused alloy out. Not a single infused alloy. That'll keep us from backing up on things like enriched redstone. So at the end of the last episode, this is where we left things off. We got started on the reactor quest line here, but we didn't make it very far. We once again got stopped in our tracks because we needed to make a bunch of uranium ore, and that to make our dimensional uranium ore. So let's get started on those, because it's going to take a while to make all of the things that we need for that dimensional uranium ore. First things first, we need to grab up a bunch of our uranium dust here and then add that to blank stone ore to make uranium ore. We then need to take that uranium ore and make our dimensional uranium ore out of that. We need 8 pieces. So 8 pieces of uranium ore times 12 is 96 pieces of our actual uranium dust. That is a lot. I think I have enough here with 112. That means we need to grab up a bunch of our blank stone ore here to be able to make that. So it looks like we are only going to need 8 pieces of that. So let's grab up 8 pieces of that. There we go. Let's find our, what is it? Not the import bus, the combiner. That's what we'll need. So the combiner here along, let's just start with a stack. There, that should be all of our uranium ore that we need. Let's go ahead and double check that here. Uranium, yeah, so that gives us 8 pieces of uranium ore. And now we need to build ourselves a dimensional infuser. Actually, I think we can use our existing dimensional infuser and just temporarily put on hold our current processing that's going on there of our crystals. Is this our, no, that's our ore extractor. It's the one next door. Here we go. The infuser, right. So if we put this in here, we should be able to replace that crystal real quick. And then that probably won't get sucked out because we've locked this drawer here. Oh, well, it did get sucked out. I just don't know where it thinks it's going. Ah, okay, wonderful. It didn't get lost along the way. Okay, and there is our dimensional ore quest done. All right, so let's go ahead and throw this extra crystal back in there. And with this in hand, we can set up another one of our, the dimensional ore extractors. All right, so I ran back to base so we could get all the ingredients to set this up. Primarily what we really need is the ore extractor itself and the placer, which once we put down the ore extractor, the placer will know what to do with all the rest of it. There we go, just like that. It places the whole thing in its template. And all we have to do is now break through this block here and we can throw the dimensional uranium ore inside there, just like that. Perfect. And now we do want to put in our basic technium machine frame that I've made up. That's going to speed this up just a little bit for us. So to actually use this dimensional uranium ore, what we're going to need to do here is put it through the chemical dissolution chamber. And that means all of that setup that we had set up between episodes over here that we'd done for gold, we need to reproduce that entire system again, only this time just for uranium. That's done here. First off, we just need to make the smallest reactor possible, I think. I don't think we need to make a large one. So let's go ahead and add our reactor control rod to our shopping list. We're going to add a fuel rod to our shopping list. And we're going to need to definitely have a couple of the reactor ports as well. I think that's going to be a major thing for us. Let's see, the energy power tap. And it looks like we're using extreme reactors in this. There's been extreme reactors and bigger reactors and a whole bunch of different mechanism add-ons here, but I think mechanism is still the base. Oh, and we have a reactor placer. And I think we'll go ahead and buy the reactor placer right away here because it's going to help us a lot in trying to figure out what we need. It apparently makes a 5x5 one. Let's see here. This is a nuclear reactor. This is a basic one. Let's just do this. Yes. Okay. We're going to grab the simple reactor to start. That should be more than enough. And I think we just need to make up a couple of those other ingredients here. Let's make these up real fast. I'm just going to make up like one of each because I'm not sure how many we are actually going to need. Let's go ahead here and make up our pistons. I think we're going to just make these up by hand like this. And this way we can kind of control how many we are making. There, and now the cobblestone won't get sucked out until we are absolutely done. Let's do 12. That should be plenty. Okay, great. Now we should be able to make this control rod. There we go. Now we should be able to make the fuel rod. Oh, but we need a piece of our uranium for that. That's easy enough for us to resolve. All right, so let's go ahead and smelt up our uranium dust. That should, get automatically sucked back into the system, and all of that should become uranium ingots that we can now immediately use for this. So let's make up a fuel rod. Again, I'm just doing one for now. We might need something different later. We are missing a hopper for this. That's easy for us. You know what? Hoppers and chests are things that we should probably automate here. So let's do that real quick. Hopper, let's add that recipe. There we go. Record that, and then chest also. We're just going to tell it oak planks is fine. There we go. Okay. And we are going to add this to our crafting array over here so it knows about it. Let's do that. Solid access port now should be easy for us. Let's do 2 of those, I believe. Let's do one more hopper. Okay, great. That's done immediately for us because we're going to need input and an output. And now we need at least one of our power blocks here to be able to get stuff in and out. Let's go ahead and make up our redstone for that. That's done immediately. There we go. Now we have a power tap. Perfect. Okay. So with all of these ingredients, we should be able to run down here and set this up. Now, I built out a platform for us right here, which is where we are going to put this reactor together. If I grab up the controller, I think I can just come over here right in the middle. I'm going to come up 2. And now I should be able to use our reactor placer. All right, so this is telling us what we are missing. We need a bunch more of our reactor glass. We need a bunch more fuel rods, 26. Control rods, that went away before I could even see it, and a little bit more of our reactor casing. Let me go set and make all of those up real fast here. I suspect that this needs to come up 1 block, because I think what it wants to do is replace the glass with this. Let me try that. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Okay, so because it needs to replace a glass block, these are all 1 block up, and so the controller is actually here. All right, so there's the power tap. Let's go ahead and connect the power tap up to our power here. All right, that's a little awkward, but we can get around it. This is the port for inputting. Do we have an output port? We don't over here. Okay, well that's easy enough. We can add our other port to it. So let's just go ahead, break this block, and we will put a power tap there, and we should be able to configure this to output from that side, and this one will input. So that should work just fine for us. Now all we need to do is give it some fuel here, which is going to be, in this case, our uranium ore that we have left. All right, so let's drop in our uranium ingots. Just like that, it seems to have disappeared, but it looks like it now has fuel. If we turn this on, it looks like it is burning fuel very slowly. It's slowly depleting. But we are producing electricity here, and it looks like that is being pulled back out, and that's great. So that means this is definitely pulling our power back out, and that's what we like to see. All right, so this is going. The reactor is now built and running, so we can get credit for all of that stuff. All right, so the reactor is going to be producing our cyanite ingots here. So that should come back out of this basic reactor at some point, and then we're going to use that to make up apparently these next ingredients down here. Cyanite nuggets, cyanite plates. Why would we want to make that? Oh, because it's going to require it for ultimate technium. That is unfortunate, unless we can come up with a much better way of making cyanite. But we will cross that bridge when we burn it, or whatever the saying is. We are going to need a reprocessor here. That's going to be easy enough for us to make, and that's going to be how we get plutonium next. So I guess we have to just hang out and wait for our ingots to start coming out here. All right, y'all, it took about 30 minutes to get a single piece of cyanite. That does not bode well for us. This means we are getting into potentially the grindy part of the pack, and I am desperately, desperately hoping that that grind is not going to continue, because otherwise we might not be able to make much progress here. All right, so there's the cyanite ingot. We are going to make ourselves a reprocessor. Oh, but we need a second cyanide ingot. Okay, so that's going to take a while to get to, and then we are going to need a third cyanide ingot to be able to make plutonium. All right, since we need to get ourselves 3 cyanide ingots to proceed from where we're at this point, I am going to go entertain myself very briefly by setting up our entire uranium processing setup. So let me go do that off camera real quick, and hopefully by the time I'm done with that, we'll have our cyanite. All right, here is our completed uranium processing line. This is exactly like the one we did for our gold processing about 1 or 2 episodes ago. The only difference here is that I've added a quantum entangler on the left. That's how we're getting our dimensional uranium ore from the other side, where we just set up that miner, all the way back over here. So this block basically works exactly like, what is it, the entangler blocks for all intents and purposes. This basically, whatever items are coming into it, it can then output somewhere else, and they basically clone. The rest of this works exactly the same as that other processing line that we'd set up, which, if you haven't joined us before, we're doing sulfuric acid to dissolve the dimensional uranium ore into slurry. That's the dirty slurry. We then use purifying water to make that clean slurry. The clean slurry then gets crystallized into our uranium crystals. That gets mixed with hydrogen chloride, which is coming out of that setup where we're breaking down our brine and water into chlorine and hydrogen, that getting mixed in here in the infuser to make hydrogen chloride. Phew, okay, we're only halfway through. That then dissolves these into our shards. Shards get mixed with oxygen, which is the byproduct of splitting that water into hydrogen and oxygen. That purifies into clumps. Clumps then get put into the crushing factory into dirty dust. That gets cleaned up in the enriching factory into clean uranium dust. And then finally, after all that, it gets smelted in here into our ingots. And those are then getting pulled out by our logistical sorter. Now, all these logistical sorters on this general chain of pipes here, all of them are using colors to determine where things are going to go. In this case, dark red. All the way back over here, dark red is going to go into this drawer here. But the good news is we are producing a boatload of uranium now. If only we were producing cyanite nearly as fast as we are producing uranium. So even after all of that work to set up all of that processing, you can see in the time that I spent on that, we're still only at another 685 millibuckets of cyanite out of the 2,000 that we need. So this is going entirely way too slow. Given that we're going to have to wait a really, really long time for the rest of these to come in, and I still have to finish this recording in the time I have provided to me, so we are going to have to do the thing I hate doing, which is cheating. So we're just going to give ourselves a couple of extra cyanite ingots real quick, just to be able to get over the hump here. Given that we've already set up the processing for them, it's just a matter of time to wait for them to come in. All right, let's make up some elite technium nuggets here real quick. Then we should be able to make up our elite technium machine frame. And then with that, we should be able to make up this reprocessor. There we go. Great. All right, since absolutely nothing in this pack so far has been easy, we are going to have to make a reprocessor placer so that we can figure out how to make this reprocessor, because that's not it. We have to look for it. Apparently the bookmarks are also bugged. Reprocessor, it is this thing. This is, you know, in Mechanism originally, or in Big Reactors originally, this was one block, not this huge thing. And unfortunately, these buttons are broken and we can't look at a layer at a time to know exactly what's going on. So we have to build the builder tool to be able to figure out how to build this nasty thing. What are we saying that we need to do here? Yeah, 39 casings, but all of my other counts appear to be very close. 11 reactor glass, one less than what I had calculated, probably because this has to go up a block or down a block. All right, great. So let me go make up all of those ingredients and we will be back here in a little while. Let's just say a little while. All right, I think I've made all of the ingredients that we need at this point. We've got our vents, our casing, our circuitry, our reactor glass, all of that good stuff. Let's see if I did this right. I did indeed get everything finally. So the reprocessor is now set up. All we have to do is give it power and water here. So let's get that running for it. Power is going to be easy. I think I have just enough universal cables to get over here. Actually, the better way to do this would be to go through the floor. Maybe I will do that instead. That way I don't have to worry about duplication. Let's come right through here. There we go. All right. Now we need to get water into you. Let's come over this way. And maybe what we do is just go ahead and dig out the floor right here, just like this. Put down a bucket of water here. We will put a bucket of water on the other side. We will put an electric pump right on that there. And then with any luck, if we just put the mechanical pipe on top, yeah, that's going to start pulling out of there. We have that running. This is now getting water. The only thing left to do is, put our cyanite ingot into this, and slowly but surely that will pop out. Let's go ahead and put ourselves here a couple of logistical transporters down. We're going to grab up our oak drawers. Actually, you know what? I don't want oak drawers for this. I want to use our chests for this. The reason why chests are a better choice than drawers in this case are because we're going to be processing a variety of different ingredients, not a single type of ingredient. And as a result, we want to be able to handle that. So that's done there. We just need to tell this to pull out here. There we go. And now we have our plutonium. Wonderful. Okay, so that's plutonium done. what do we use our Blutonium for? Let's take a look real quick here. Blutonium then gets processed into Ludicrite. This also uses only water, so we should just be able to put this right back in here just like that. And that should then process eventually into Ludicrite. After Ludicrite, I think that this gets a little bit more complicated because then we're going to start needing purifying water here for all the rest of these. But I will go ahead and set up our water purifiers over here and start getting those cranking off of this same water source. So let me get that set up real fast. All right, there we go. We've got a nice little platform here to put our water purifiers on, just like this. That should work. These are now getting water into them. That means purified water will come out the top here, and we can just add our pipes on top of that, just like so. There we go, and these just need to know to pull back out. Those go into a tank, and now we have purifying water available to us. All right, so let's see here. Our Ludicrite is now done. We get credit for that. Next, it goes back into the reprocessor, this time with purifying water. So we can actually break these pipes here. Let's go ahead and grab up our wrench. We're going to break that pipe right there. We're going to break these pipes, and then we're going to empty the water out of here. Ah, that's what we needed. We needed the gauge dropper for mechanism. This is just glass panes with a piece of osmium on top. I think if we hit this over and over, we should then be able to remove all of the fluid out of here. All right, there we go. At long last, we got that emptied. You know what? We should probably do this a bucket at a time in the future because that's real slow and real annoying here. All right, so Ludicrite, how much of the purified water does that need? 8 buckets. All right, no problem. Let's grab ourselves up 8 buckets. All right, now we have the Inanite. Now all we have to do is take that all the way over here to our dimensional infuser, and not the extractor, the infuser, and slap that in so that we can make our platinum. And we just need to grab it back out as soon as it is done. There's our platinum. It's going to try and go over here to the crafter, and we'll pick it back up when it shows up here. Here it comes, zippity zip. And there it is, platinum ingot. Great. The last thing in this quest line here is to make a platinum rod. So let's go down all the way here to our rod manufacturer, our press. We're going to throw the single precious piece of platinum into here, and that will make up a nice rod for us. There we go. Great. So the only thing remaining is to double back, get a little bit more cyanite here, and make up nuggets and plates. So first things first, let's get our nuggets. There we go. And then I believe the plate, we just need to drop one piece in there like that. And this should be all of the quests. Well, friends, that was a lot of effort just to get this far, and I know that those last few ingredients here that we kind of rushed through are going to need to be automated as well, which means I'm going to need to set up some sort of a system here that can handle the reprocessing in an automated fashion. That means at least 2 of these reprocessors I'm going to have to make if I'm being clever about it, but I might need to make even more than that, and this is just going to be an astonishingly slow process. So in between episodes, I'm going to try and set up as much of that automation as I possibly can, and then hopefully we'll be ready to go in the next section of Questline when we come back. So, for now, thanks again for watching Enterprise Architecture, and we'll see you back here then. Bye, friends!